Caught on camera, the violent thugs who bashed a Mitchell Park woman in her own home. Tonight, the police operation to lock them up.
Stumbling across Regency Road, a pedestrian is hit by a car. Good Samaritans rushing in to help.
Station upgrades and half-priced fares for our most vulnerable. The Premier's plan to get more South Australians using public transport.
Israel strikes back. Explosions across Iran as military targets are attacked.
And a final salute for hundreds of SA soldiers. We reveal their new mission in the top end.
This is Adelaide's 9 News with Will McDonald and Alice Monfries.
Good evening. A 68-year-old woman is tonight in hospital having been set upon by a gang of thugs in her Mitchell Park home. They smashed their way in through a window in the middle of the night.
Police say the attackers used a timber stake to bash the victim, today arresting one of the males believed to be responsible.
A 17-year-old boy shields his face as he's arrested over a sickening crime.
Did you assault a 68-year-old woman?
It happened just before 3 o'clock this morning. Security cameras capturing a gang on Malden Avenue, then the sound of them breaking into a home. It's understood that's the sound of the victim, who was allegedly bludgeoned over the head with a timber stake, her front window also smashed in. One alleged attacker approaching a car. The camera later ripped from the wall, but another angle captured the woman being taken to hospital, where she remains tonight with minor head injuries. Neighbours say the victim has lived here for decades, but in recent days has begun the process of packing up, ready to move into a nursing home. Today's arrest happened just metres from the victim's home.
Would you like to apologise? Do you have anything to say to your alleged victim?
Late this afternoon, the teenager from Whyalla was charged over the attack and also over the assault of 4 people at the nearby OTR on Marion Road around an hour earlier. Police are also investigating if the same gang is linked to a robbery at the same service station the previous evening, where a worker was threatened at knife point, 2 youths seen taking off. Inga Nielsen, 9 News.
To some breaking news, and emergency crews have rushed to a campground at Myponga where 5 people have been injured in a gas explosion. SA Ambulance says 2 patients, a 25-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman, are in a serious but stable condition, and we'll have more details as they come to hand. A Good Samaritan has told 9 News how he rushed to help a pedestrian who was struck by a car at Broadview. Security vision shows the man in his 20s seen stumbling through traffic moments before he was hit. He suffered serious facial injuries in the crash.
Just after 1 this morning, an agitated man dicing with death. Back and forth across the median strip, he comes within inches of passing cars on Regency Road. Then, one couldn't stop in time.
I heard a lot of noises of people yelling, and then after a bit I heard screeching of a car and then a crash.
The 20-year-old pedestrian struck the windscreen. Passers-by racing over as he lay injured on the road.
A woman running to the other side asking if someone was okay.
The crash happened right outside Gagan Handra's home. He'd just finished night shift and grabbed towels and tissues to help.
Yes, very badly injured, yes. All blood, mouth, arms, all red. Yes, a lot of blood.
The man, who's from the local area, was taken to hospital by ambulance. While the injuries to his face are serious, they're not life-threatening. But those who saw the crash say he's lucky to be alive. The 22-year-old driver of the Toyota wasn't injured. Beth Excel, 9 News.
The Premier has announced a major train station upgrade and half-price fares for some of the state's most vulnerable in a bid to get more people onto public transport. But the opposition says the government is simply copying their announcements in a bid to win a southern suburb seat.
A sunny Saturday afternoon and not a single passenger at Merino train station. Locals blaming the 30 troubling incidents that have been reported there in the past 3 years.
We had 2 ladies attacked in the tunnels here at Merino, getting off trains in 2 separate incidences. We've had a number of other incidences where rocks have been thrown through train windows.
The Premier today announcing a solution, promising $2 million to improve safety at the station.
Better lighting, CCTV critically, an emergency phone link, tactile marking up and down the train station.
But the opposition has questioned the timing of the announcement.
The Labor Party recently made a series of announcements about station upgrades that they were upgrading, but notably Merino was ignored. So what's changed? Well, I'll tell you what's changed. There's now a by-election.
The Liberal Party promised its own upgrade for Merino earlier this month when it announced its candidate for the seat of Black.
It's always difficult to know why these things are being announced now.
I don't really know the motives behind what they're doing, but if you see the legacy, the pattern, what's going, it's you've got to question it.
The upgrades are part of a broader plan to attract more people to public transport. The state government also announcing discounted fares for some of the state's most vulnerable.
Nearly 15,000 people, in addition to what are already getting concessions fares, will be eligible purely because they are on a healthcare card.
The government says the number of seniors taking trains and buses has skyrocketed since their rides became free 2 years ago, but concedes there's still work to be done.
And if we're serious about increasing public transport patronage, then we've got to invest in the amenity of it and the safety of it.
Samantha Hogan, 9 News.
A man riding a push scooter has been injured in a hit-run crash at Hackham West. Police say the 20-year-old was riding near the intersection of Honeypot and Main South Roads when he was hit by a vehicle that then took off around 1:30 this afternoon. The victim was taken to hospital, but his injuries are not life-threatening. Police want to hear from any witnesses.
A motorcyclist was seriously injured when his bike rear-ended a ute on North Terrace in the city. The crash happened at the intersection with King William Road just after midnight this morning. The rider, a 25-year-old Adelaide man, was in a stable condition when he was taken to hospital. Those in the ute weren't injured.
And a serious crash near the River Murray town of Walker Flat has left a 53-year-old woman in a serious condition. Police say she was the driver of a car that crashed into a tree just after 7 last night. The local woman was flown to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Her 24-year-old male passenger suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
The world was warned it would retaliate, and now it has. Israel carrying out a series of airstrikes against Iran. The 4-hour assault came less than a month after Iran unleashed its own barrage.
For weeks, Israel swore it would retaliate. Today, those threats were realised.
The Israel Defense Forces is conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran.
Missiles seen in the skies over the capital, Tehran. The sound of explosions piercing the night. Many were taken out by aerial defence systems, but Israeli officials claim roughly 20 targets were hit, including missile production complexes and air defence sites. Iran acknowledged multiple military bases came under fire, but insisted the strikes caused limited damage.
The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts. The State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond.
This is just the latest round in the escalating conflict between the nations. It's been 25 days since Iran delivered its ballistic missile barrage that sent Israelis scrambling into bomb shelters. Prime Minister Netanyahu gathered with top military officials at an Air Force base in Carey today to coordinate the response, concluding the operation approximately 4 hours after it began.
The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission. If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond.
Iranian state media downplayed today's attack, at first remaining vague about the source of the explosions, then labelling them insignificant. The United States says it was told well in advance of Israel's plans, the assault beginning as its Secretary of State landed back in Washington. It was Antony Blinken's 11th visit to the Middle East since the war began, to again appeal for a ceasefire deal that seems as far away as ever. At the Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, the situation is desperate. Staff here say the facility itself has become a target, and Israeli troops have entered twice. Located in the Jabalia area, where Israeli forces say Hamas operates.
The Israeli military is subjecting an entire population to bombing, siege and starvation. Palestinian armed groups also reportedly continue to operate from amongst civilians, including places of shelter, putting civilians in harm's way.
Heavy blows also continuing in Lebanon. This is where 3 journalists were killed by strikes in the country's southeast. One worked for a Hezbollah-affiliated TV network. Despite Hezbollah's leadership being pulverised, rockets still penetrate Israeli territory. In the north, 8 were injured, 2 critically, by shrapnel. In London, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
The Prime Minister is on his way home from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and on the way out he was embraced by enthusiastic villagers in Samoa. King Charles also saying farewell to the Pacific nation with a poignant message about his own mortality.
If the Pacific is one big happy family, then Anthony Albanese was playing the part of favourite uncle. The people of Satapuala decked their village in green and gold and dubbed it Australia for the week.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
As this island nation hosts the countries of the Commonwealth.
Well, here we go, Australia.
Received with honour
Australia
and ancient ritual. Anthony Albanese, first Australian Prime Minister and now a Samoan village chief. Bestowed the title in a kava ceremony.
This will be a permanent connection between Australia and beautiful Samoa.
Proud people, and that's been on display all week. But the welcome they gave our Prime Minister really displayed their warmth and hospitality as well. And Australia being embraced by the Pacific is key as it looks to counter China. Tight security for this meeting, the first operation coordinated under the Albanese Orchestrated Pacific Policing Initiative, AFP, among 46 officers deployed from 11 countries as part of a multinational squad now available for events and emergencies.
That a security threat to any one of us is a threat to all of us.
While we're from different countries, we have different cultures. We're bonded by the skills and the way that police operate.
And this regional family doesn't mind a ribbing.
We have a development squad and we call them the Wallabies.
Tonight, as the Prime Minister heads for home, it's a wrap on the royal tour to the King and Queen's final stop, the local village that became Little Britain.
I hope that I survive long enough to come back again.
The monarch having made his mark on the global push for climate action. Liz Daniels, 9 News.
Well, she's without doubt a global superstar. And for the first time, Beyoncé has publicly thrown her support behind Kamala Harris in her race for the White House.
She took to the stage at a rally in Houston, Texas, not to perform, but to plead for women to fight for abortion rights.
Global superstars taking centre stage in this presidential campaign.
Houston, you've already had a hand in creating destiny.
Queen Bee in her hometown.
H-Town.
Beyoncé, the soundtrack to Kamala Harris's historic run. Tonight, the headline act offering her support to women across the country.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
At the heart of this rally, reproductive rights. Kamala Harris calls Texas ground zero in a national fight against abortion bans.
And we need you. Your freedom is your God-given right. Are y'all ready to add your voice to the new American song?
Then came the woman they want to call Madam President.
Freedom is not to be given. It is not to be bestowed. It is ours by right. And we are prepared to fight for it.
A fight she's taking to Donald Trump, who was also campaigning in the Lone Star State.
We're like a garbage can for the rest of the world.
Courting male voters with an appearance on America's top podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience.
You cannot be voting for Kamala. Kamala, you're not a Kamala person, I know you.
Before arriving 3 hours late to a rally in Michigan.
Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're useless. You're horrible.
In a new poll, 49% of Americans have said Donald Trump is a fascist.
It's got a new thing going. You know, I think now they're calling me a dictator.
He said he wanted to be that dictator, and he said he would do it during his presidency. He's not just saying it, people. He's promising.
This election is going to be won in battleground states, including this one here in Pennsylvania, where campaigns have poured in so much time and money to try and get one foot in the door of the White House. Ultimately, all roads there could lead through this very state. Right now, this race is a dead heat. In Scranton, Pennsylvania, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
Hundreds of South Australian-based soldiers have been given their marching orders, the Defence Force moving their battalion to the Northern Territory.
Today, the men and women were farewelled at an official army parade in the city, which featured an almost 200-gun salute.
The 7th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment on one last lap of the Torrens Parade Ground. Accomplished soldiers with pride beaming from their eyes. The battalion has called Adelaide home since 2010, but after a Defence Force strategic review, it will soon merge with the 5th Battalion in Darwin. It means that these serving infantry personnel are moving on.
But it's quite sad in a way that they're leaving the state, and I think they're going to be missed by the people of South Australia.
They've been there for more than a dozen Anzac Day marches, and in regional South Australia have been put through intensive training.
Considering the history of the battalion here in Adelaide, and I think today's really about a celebration of all of that.
This is a bittersweet moment for these soldiers, the end of an era here in Adelaide, but also a new beginning as they prepare for fresh challenges in the top end.
Of the more than 200 soldiers who attended the farewell, more than half will now join the merged 5th 7th Battalion in Darwin on December 3. Their new boss here today to welcome them to the team.
Oh, look, 7RR's got a fine reputation. They are individually and collectively outstanding soldiers, and I cannot wait to have them as part of my team in the Northern Territory.
The soldiers will take their families and a unique history with them, while this plaque will ensure more than just memories are left behind.
I think we'll be back here, no doubt. So, I don't think it's a goodbye, more like a see you later.
Remember the 7th. Thanks.
Will DeFulvio, 9 News.
Well, a man being called a hero for rescuing a kangaroo from the surf at Port Noarlunga Beach has spoken about the ordeal. Harley Brooks says he stripped down to his underwear and dived in to help after spotting the surfing skippy getting dunked and starting to drown about 8:30 yesterday morning.
Yeah, just jumped in and went for a quick swim and got a nice little wave on the way back in of the kangaroo, so that was cool. I probably shouldn't have wore zebra knickers, but I did have pants on before this happened.
Kangaroos can swim but are rarely seen in the ocean. Harley might get an underwear modelling contract or something.
Not a good day to wear the bottom of the barrel on these.
Not all superheroes wear capes, not that he was wearing much at all. But.
Still a champ.
Now, speaking of heroes, Corey Norris is a big one at the 36ers.
Yeah, a lot has been said of Montrez Harrell, Allison, and once again he's put the Sixers on his back in another stunning come-from-behind win. And later in sport, the coach heaps praise on his efforts and also reveals the fiery halftime spray that sparked a response. Also, with a 5th straight win, the Power storms into a maiden finals campaign, and Via Sistina sets aside a week of drama to romp home in the Cox Plate. That's all coming up later in sport.
Right, thanks Corey, see you soon. A child savagely attacked by a road kangaroo.
The battered and bruised schoolboy tonight speaks out. Next, the 12-year-old tells of how he thought he was going to die and how he protected himself.
Queenslanders head to the polls. Will the vote call time on nearly a decade of Labor rule?
And 'tis the season. An iconic Adelaide Christmas decoration goes up in the city.
Three men are dead after two light planes collided mid-air and crashed into bushland in Sydney southwest. Locals ran to the site to help, but they were forced back by the fire.
We just heard a big bang, and then we just seen a lot of big black smoke coming from the back of our property. It's really frightening to know that it's just happened right at the back here.
Still unclear what exactly led to that collision, and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau is investigating.
A 12-year-old boy has survived a vicious kangaroo attack in his backyard northeast of Melbourne. Phoenix Bond says the animal pinned him down for minutes before a neighbour heard his cries for help.
Phoenix Bond had blood streaming from his head and suffered a massive gash to his right thigh, inflicted by the claws of a kangaroo, tearing at him through his onesie.
I just feel like pretty traumatised, really scared.
The 12-year-old was in his backyard 26 kilometres northeast of Melbourne looking at a mob of roos. When a large male bounded towards him, Phoenix tried to run away but slipped.
The kangaroo came on me and it was like kind of scratching my back and my head. It kind of just felt like something was like kind of karate chopping me over and over on my back.
The Monday morning attack lasted a couple of minutes before a neighbour heard Phoenix's screams for help.
When I was on the ground, I was like, oh, if no one gets out to me, I'm going to be dead.
It could have got his neck, it could have got his face, it could have got an artery, and because I was inside, I would not have heard him if it wasn't for our neighbour that heard him screaming out.
Once confronted, the roo hopped away. Phoenix was rushed to hospital where he needed surgery on his head and leg.
Because the gash on his leg was so deep, right down to the muscle, they had to do plastic surgeries. They couldn't just stitch it up there.
Phoenix will be back in hospital next week to get his stitches removed, but there's no doubt he'll be telling his wild tale for many years to come.
I'm so lucky that it didn't get deeper into my neck and one more minute and it got deeper into my head, it probably would have been over.
Julia Passarelli, 9 News.
Well, the polls are about to close in Queensland with the result likely to end nearly a decade of power for Labor. The race for government has become closer in recent days, but it is expected the Liberal National Party will get across the line.
With a smile and a sausage, this likely Stephen Miles' last act as Premier.
Tell us if it's any good.
A frantic final day, 36 seats in 36 hours, using whatever transport available to outrun an unpopular predecessor and a tiring government.
Time will tell, I suppose, Josh, but I'll certainly know that I couldn't have done anything more.
LNP leader David Crucifili ran his campaign focused on crime and costs, while fending off concerns abortion could be recriminalised if he wins tonight.
This really is a pivotal point in this state's history, and I'm urging Queenslanders to, it's time, vote for a fresh start.
With the Greens, the Catters, One Nation and Independents, a vote that looked simple a month ago could be heading for a complicated conclusion.
We're very excited to be able to smash apart the two-party system.
So Joe Bjelke-Petersen used to say, what's good for Queensland is good for Australia. Well, tonight we find out what Queenslanders at least think is good for them. This is the state of play at the moment. Labor have a lead, but the overwhelming feeling tonight is the LNP will get the 12 seats they need and win power from opposition at an election for just the second time in nearly 70 years. The other thing we're going to keep an eye on is these Greens seats here. Will the Greens continue their march, particularly in cities, ahead of the election next year? Labor saw the first crack in its big red wall across mainland Australia in the Northern Territory. Expect another big crack tonight.
The festive season has officially arrived in the city, with Victoria Square's giant Christmas tree going up today. Standing at 25 metres tall, the tree has more than 13,000 individually programmed LED lights. Those will be turned on from November 9, with the dazzling display to continue nightly until January 4. It is hard to believe we are here already, isn't it?
So close, but I do love that Christmas tree. It's a great
It's
spot
an exciting
in Adelaide.
time of year.
It certainly is. Well, bit of cloud around today, but it didn't stop the temperatures from rising.
Yeah, it caught me out. Chelsea, Carey, it was even warmer than was expected.
Yes, guys, really quite a warm start to the weekend. Northerly winds helped to drive up temperatures. So we did end up hitting a top of 28.7 degrees here in the city. But later tonight, a cooler wind change is set to roll through Adelaide. That's just going to take the edge off temperatures tomorrow. We could see a few showers through regional areas, but it is looking like a mostly dry change. For any decent rain, well, it does look like we'll be waiting a little longer. I'll have the full details later.
All right, looking forward to it as always, Chelsea. Thank you. A hidden library that's only available to a select few.
And tonight, 9 News goes inside the home to some of Australia's oldest records. One book dating all the way back to the 1800s.
plus a huge gun battle between Mexican drug cartels. All of it was caught on camera.
And a remarkable rescue the moment a woman is pulled from the basement of a burning US home.
9 News, brought to you by Hyundai. Have you tried it? Now you can.
The Philippines has been devastated with at least 76 people killed when Tropical Storm Trami hit. The storm triggered landslides and widespread flooding. More than 300,000 people have either been forced to evacuate or their homes have been destroyed. The system also brought winds of 115 kilometres an hour, knocking pedestrians off their feet in the city of Quezon. An incredible rescue has played out in the American state of Ohio. Emergency crews saving a woman who was trapped in the basement of a burning home.
You're good. Here you go. You're good. Try to keep her out. Go. Get out.
He was pulled out just in time, then taken to hospital to be treated for smoke inhalation.
A cartel shootout caught on camera. These are two rival factions of the same gang battling it out less than 2 kilometres from the US-Mexico border, exchanging gunfire before an explosive is thrown out the window of a ute. Returning to Earth after nearly 8 months in orbit, a SpaceX capsule has splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico with 4 astronauts on board. One of the crew members was immediately taken to hospital with an unspecified medical condition, NASA only sharing that they remain stable.
Tonight we can show you one of our oldest and most important records that is rarely seen. The book from 1800 has the names and details of some of the first settlers, and now it's getting a 21st century refresh.
Beneath the first Parliament of Australia, there is a place of records that few are privy to visit. Only our elected representatives can probe through these folders held in compactus after compactus, some of them the oldest blueprints for governance, like the Settlers' Muster Book of 1800.
12 years after the First Fleet got here, we can actually see what had been achieved.
1800, Governors Hunter and King are dealing with convicts, freed convicts, and a growing band of settlers, policed by the New South Wales Corps who, well, let's say that not all the Crims are in arrowhead pyjamas.
The nearest person in authority is in India.
So a list was made in the Settlers' Muster Book, every then Englishman, how they came, what they had. John MacArthur, lauded father of the merino industry, face of the old $2 note, was doing all right in the land-grabbing stakes of the early colony days. More soprano than soldier of the crown.
At the end of the ledger, like any good Excel spreadsheet, he ends up with 1,610
acres of land.
The brewer James Squire is noted, not quite brewing at this point.
He is the first successful brewer, a little later than this because he has to wait for them to grow hops in Tasmania.
Mary Wade, sentenced to death in her early teens for stealing fabric, then transported, could be argued the mother of colonial Australia. 300 descendants at her death, now tens of thousands who can trace to her.
I'm one of them. I understand Kevin Rudd is one of them, but I don't think, it's certainly not an exclusive club.
But what is exclusive is access to these records, now being addressed through the start of digitisation and making it public via the web, on a website called Parlamento.
What we want to provide is access for everyone, not only throughout New South Wales, but throughout the world, to see the incredible historical pieces that we've got here in the library.
At Macquarie Street, Mike Dalton, 9 News.
On a mission to one of the world's most isolated workplaces.
And it takes organisers all year to plan it. Up next, we take you on board the 2-week lifeline journey to researchers in Antarctica.
The extra training tool that's helping SA paramedics when you need their help most.
And Banana the Budgie swoops in from interstate to steal hearts and awards.
South Australian paramedics are part of a new program that's teaching first responders how to properly communicate with non-verbal patients. Teaming up with disability support service Scope Australia and funded by the NDIS, it's hoped the training will help minimise trauma.
This is absolutely an everyday event, so we need to treat it as an everyday event so that people with disabilities and people with communication issues can be respected, heard and understood.
Hundreds of healthcare workers have already completed the training, with hopes it will now be shared into hospitals.
It's a journey that takes 2 weeks and only happens once a year. Last night, the critical supply ship arrived at the Australian-run research bases in Antarctica.
The vessel carrying 12 months' worth of food and fuel, plus some 100 new employees, ready to keep the world's most isolated workplace afloat.
This time of year in Antarctica, the sun struggles to set. But on board Aussie icebreaker Noyina today, it is the dawn of a new season.
We've been chatting to the team that's down at Davis Station. They've been there for 12 months now, and they're pretty excited for us to turn up.
2 weeks ago in Hobart, the ship was loaded with 70 tonnes of supplies for its once-a-year delivery. Enough food, water and fuel to keep the Australian-run Davis Research Station going for the next 12 months. And there was room on the ship for a few of the finer things.
We've definitely got a large quantity of ice cream, chocolate, coffee and of course the all-essential toilet paper.
But also on board a whole new crew, some 100 workers from tradies to scientists ready to swap with the existing teams.
This voyage will have science teams that will be heading down to Davis and Mawson stations. They'll be undertaking seabird monitoring programs.
Top of the to-do list, a new water treatment facility.
We're working on a reverse osmosis desalination plant, a new building which will replace the existing building which is now at its end of life.
It converts salt water to fresh drinking water.
We need to produce fresh water using salt water via a desalination plant and then store that water for most of the year actually.
A tough gig in a tough environment, but the views make it all worthwhile. Alex Sankey, 9 News.
What a job, huh? Well, the humble little budgie that is a native Aussie bird is reportedly growing in popularity as one of the most popular pets in the world. And today, hundreds of people headed along to Budgie Fest at Campbelltown. The Budgerigar Council South Australia running their annual Best of the Best awards for the serious breeders. And a very popular part of Budgie Fest was the Pet Awards. Plenty of youngsters keen to show off their feathered best friends. The winner of the ultimate best pet budgie for 2024 was Banana. His young owners and their dad actually made the trip all the way from New South Wales to put their colourful and friendly bird on show.
Aw, look at him.
So cute. Wonder why they called him Banana.
Why?
Oh, just
yellow.
That was a terrible dad joke.
Because he's yellow. I was thinking you're making some reference to Budgie smiling. Oh, because he's yellow. They could have called him Sunflower. I don't know. All right, let's get to sport. Corey Norris, the power of to the AFLW.
They are, Alice. They're on fire, claiming a 5th straight win. And up next, we'll have all the highlights from their victory on the Gold Coast. Also, the Reds share the points in the season opener against the reigning champs. Also, J-Mac stands and delivers to make it 3 Cox plates on the trot. And how's this? A walk-off Grand Slam to win Game 1 of the World Series. Hello again. Adelaide 36ers coach Mike Wells has heaped praise on star import Montrezl Harrell after his side's thrilling overtime win against the Cairns Taipans. Wells also revealing the spray that sparked another star into gear.
And the 36ers stay unbeaten at home. This city is their fortress.
And this come from behind win came with plenty of feeling.
We're trying to form an identity. We're trying to take this group somewhere that the 36ers haven't been in a while.
Down by 16 points at half-time, Wells delivered some home truths.
This guy right here probably got most of my halftime speech, and I love him to death, and I'm glad that he understood me going at him.
And it worked. Davis finishing with 29 points and 8 assists.
He snapped, and he know how to piss me off and get me going, I say that.
Well, sometimes I just got to find the right button.
But it was another import and Adelaide's biggest draw card, Montrezl Harrell, who got the crowd dancing.
And this is what has to happen. You've got to get this crowd involved.
Helping his team to find their groove.
Harrell thought about it, did more than think about it, he drained it.
With a game-high 36 points.
Harrell outside again.
Wow. 16 rebounds and 5 blocks.
Lead. Edwards skipping inside, blocked by Harrell.
The 36ers head across the ditch next Saturday to take on the Breakers. Dylan Smith, 9 News.
Adelaide United has kicked off its A-League campaign with a draw against reigning champions Central Coast. The Reds had most of the play in the first half, taking just 10 minutes to get on the board.
Stabs it back post, Clough, and it's Caltac at the last moment. Jovanovic, and it's across the line.
But the Mariners equalised in the second half to share the points. Well, Port Adelaide has secured a maiden finals appearance following a 5th straight win, taking care of the Suns on the Gold Coast by 34 points. Gemma Houghton caused a few headaches up forward with 2 goals.
She designed the Guernsey they're wearing this afternoon. She's one of 2 Indigenous stars out there for Yatapudi, and the other one is Houghton. She's got the double.
The Power are now a game clear in 7th spot ahead of next Sunday's clash against the lowly Giants. Meantime, the Crows' top 4 plans hinge on next Friday's clash with Geelong after going down to the top of the table North Melbourne last night. Danielle Ponta's 2 final-term goals lifted hopes of a stunning comeback, but they eventually fell 8 points short at Norwood Oval.
Lots of the elements of the game were the way we want them to be. We just want to be a little bit more efficient, and probably just our ground ball was probably the only thing which we felt was just a bit off.
Yeah, a win over the Cats will lock in a top 4 spot ahead of the finals in a fortnight. Well, the Adelaide Strikers will begin their WBBL title defence tomorrow when they host Brisbane in the first of a double header at Adelaide Oval. Star bowler Megan Shute says the group is determined to go back to back to back.
Yeah, we said it after the last game that I wanted a three-peat, and with the squad that we've signed, I can't see why we can't do that. And, you know, our strength has always been playing consistent cricket, so I think if we can do that, it'll play us in good stead.
That match will be followed by the Renegades taking on Elise Perry's Sydney Sixers. 3-time Cox Plate winning jockey James McDonald has revealed he thought his chances of riding today were all but over after Tuesday's track work fall. Despite that, he and Chris Waller have turned things around to claim a legendary win with Via Sistina.
Up before it was over, James McDonald knew a 3rd straight Cox Plate was his. His 100th Group 1 win, Tuesday's fall now in the past.
Forget what happened Tuesday, it's just a good horse. Yeah, I've just done my job to prove it.
The Valley turned it on again with a packed crowd ready to go.
Racing in the Cox Plate.
Pride of Jenny went early.
Pride of Jenny went to the front.
But then came J-Mac.
But Via Sistina storms away with 150 to go.
Via Sistina didn't just cruise home, she broke Winks' track record by almost 2 seconds.
She won like Winks. She blended them, and yeah, it's just a phenomenal performance.
It's an incredible turnaround from when McDonald was thrown during track work on Tuesday morning.
I thought our hopes were doomed. When I popped myself up and looked at and watched her gallop away, if looks could tell a story, we were stuffed.
The way the team has been able to recover from there will be discussed for years to come, but for now, Chris Waller is putting it all into perspective.
They put the Cox Plates on every year. If she didn't make it, who cares? She's alive and James is alive.
Not only is he alive, he's joined the greats and can celebrate arguably the greatest Cox Plate win.
Fantastic stuff. Well, interim Matildas coach Tom Samani has plenty of work ahead of him to return the side to the top of women's soccer. Australia has slumped to 15th in the world, and the new boss says their defence is a mess after a draw against Switzerland.
An old face leading the new Matildas era, and it looked like interim coach Tom Samani's first game back in charge would be a successful one. Caitlin Ford converting a first-half penalty.
And Cooley rolls it into the back of the net.
But in their first hit out since the Paris Olympics, Australia's defence was again exposed.
And Switzerland, the pressure telling.
25th ranked Switzerland, unlucky not to snatch a win at the death.
I was a little bit disappointed
with the quality of the goal that we gave away. I thought it was very messy defensively.
Aussie defensive dynamo Dyson Daniels is loving his new life in Atlanta. Daniels scoring a career-high 18 points in the Hawks' win over the Hornets.
Daniels off the glass. What a circuit shot, and he hit it.
A scale of 1 to 10, that's a 20.
Josh Giddey stuffed the stat sheet in his second game for the Bulls. 19 points, 6 rebounds and 9 assists in an upset win over the Bucks. With a combined yearly salary of over $800 million, there's no underdogs in this year's Baseball World Series. The New York Yankees led by a run in extra innings in Los Angeles, with 56,000 nervous Dodgers fans on their feet.
Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone!
The first walk-off Grand Slam in the 122-year history of the World Series. Mark Gottlieb, 9 News.
Budgies and all, that's our sport, guys.
Corey, thanks very much, Corey. All right. Chelsea Carey has the weather details after the break. Sorry.
First, though, here's a look at tomorrow's speed cameras. Stay with us.
Wake up and laugh with Adelaide's #1 breakfast show.
Brudits and Laws, weekdays on 104.7 Triple M.
For the latest Adelaide news and traffic.
Hello again. Well, it does look like we'll be waiting a little longer for some rain for the garden, but certainly plenty of spring sunshine on this forecast. Today, well, a warm start to the weekend thanks to those northerly winds. It topped 28.7 here in the city. Right now, it's sitting on around 24. Temperatures well above average across the suburbs, even with the cloud around. Really quite a warm day. Reached 31 at Mawson Lakes and Elizabeth, 28 along our coastline. A few showers and storms out in the far west today, with a change moving in. Elsewhere, a mainly warm and dry day. Into the 30s for many northern towns. 30 at Murray Bridge as well. Little fresher across the south, 24 at Kingscote and Narracourt. So on the charts, you can see this trough moving in from the west with some cooler southwesterly winds behind it. This change is bringing a little bit of cloud, but as far as rainfall goes, well, not a whole lot. If you are heading interstate, partly cloudy and 24 for Melbourne and Canberra tomorrow. Sydney 26, 26 as well for Brisbane with half a chance of a shower. Back to SA, and there is a chance of showers up in our far north, but elsewhere looking at a mostly dry day. Windy at times at Ceduna and around at Spencer Gulf, a top of 28 for Port Pirie. Mostly sunny across our south, but might notice those fresh winds along the coast. Victor Harbour heading for 22. So a marine wind warning has been issued for the upper west coast and Spencer Gulf tomorrow. Locally, southerly winds up to 25 knots north of Grange and seas increasing to 1.5 metres. Across Adelaide, there might be a bit of cloud around first thing in the morning, but looking at a mainly sunny Sunday, just a little breezy at times. A top of 27 for Elizabeth, 24 by the Bay, 25 at Noarlunga and Mount Barker. Here in the city, down to 13 tonight. Tomorrow, a sunny top of 26 degrees, should be lovely. Then we are looking at a mainly warm and dry week. Sunny and 26 on Tuesday and Wednesday. And at this stage, warming up as we head into the weekend. Alison will up to 32 degrees on Saturday.
That's swimming weather. Ready for the beach. All right, finally, a look at what's on 60 Minutes tomorrow night.
Thanks. Tomorrow night,
I don't think you can wake up one day and do something that brutal.
the crime that horrified Australia.
It smacks of hate, it smacks of narcissistic anger and rage.
Investigating the hidden past.
He was unhinged, deranged.
Of the monster who killed Lily James.
You can rot in hell.
Plus, Al Pacino.
That was my debut.
The best in the business.
Man, you're a nutbag. I love it.
That's tomorrow night after the block. Back to you.
And that's Adelaide's 9 News for this Saturday. So glad you could join us.
We'll have updates a little later tonight, but until then, have a great evening.
From all the team, good night.